talk out. Here's Trouble Bit of Jim Does Supercoach talking out AFL Supercoach ahead of round 15. Oh, yes. It's crazy. We've only got one more week of buys after this. It's crazy how quick the AFL season goes, isn't it? It's absolute chaos. Anyway, with round 15 up ahead, how'd we go in round 14? Disaster. Disaster for your mate Jim this week. 1926. Disgusting score. Not impressed at all by myself. 437th overall now. Dropping 5,600 spots with one real rough week. Basically, this was Archie Roberts getting hurt. That sucked. Basically, you know, the combination of Took Miller. I brought him in the end during the week. 67. Absolutely brutal. No Rankin on the short week. He likely comes back this week, but jeez. And then, of course, not pulling the trigger on the Xerri trade last week with his 152. That was a bit of a rough one. So, look, a couple of shining lights for my team. At least Grundy. I still had the C on Grundy after all of it. So probably saved my week a little bit. He still scored 119. Not bad. But when you've got a week like this where you've got some absolutely mammoth scores that you don't have, yeah, it goes bad. 184 for Jordan Dawson, 188 for Maximus Gornicus, 152 for Xerri, 151 for Wilbert Ashcroft. I did have Shees. I did have Pickett. Cozzy, they had 142, 141. Naz had 135 as well. Will Setterfield, as we all expected, 133 in 0.1% of teams. He has 104 friends and family apparently playing Supercoach as Will Setterfield. Lockie Ash, another one that I kicked the tires on last week, did not bring into my team, thinking, Took Miller will be all right. She'll be apples. Nope, not at all. 130. Yeah. Butters, 128. Noah Anderson, 126, same as Taranto and Rory Laird and Joe Richards. There's a forgotten man. 124 for Maximus Homicus as well. So, bit of a weird one for me this week, and it was kind of like, oh, right. We're very, very close to having the full upgrade team. Have 8 trades left. And sort of, all right, cool. With Milan Murdoch only ripping off a 53 last week, throw a bit of a spanner in the wrench, as we say. Do we, Jim? Will Lewis with 15. Real brutal sort of stuff that made sure that their scores didn't really, do the nice little uptick that I probably needed. Will Lewis dropped 16K. Milan Murdoch, his break even now goes up to 109 as he heads into his break. He went down 4K. It makes a big difference, right? When they start turning and you haven't jumped off. Thought we could eke out one more week from those two. We were not able. But still, with the buys this week, you've got to remember that you've got Brisbane, Essendon, West Coast, and Sydney on the buy. So that's no Heaney or Grundy. That's no Ashcroft or Neal. If you've still got McCluggage or Zorko on your team from Brisbane, both injured. I don't know what's going on there. Archie Roberts goes out, is on a buy this week for Essendon as well. Sam Durham, if you brought him in last week, that was the thing that gave me pause and why I brought in Took Miller. I think Durham managed a 90-odd, but I still went with Took. That didn't work out great, but still. Yeah, you just got to keep an eye on those. Murdoch being on the buy. I mean, it's a weird situation. We've got a couple of really tasty, interesting folks that we want to bring into our team. And with the 3 trades this week for the buys, I mean, you are in an interesting position where Xerri is cheap, Roberts is hurt. We're probably all pretty close to having a full upgrade team. And we've got some tasty rookies there. So I guess you don't want to miss out, right? If you're going for overall ranking, like I guess I am, I've also got a bunch of leagues. I don't want to miss out on a Xerri game against Richmond this week, for instance. I also can't afford to bring in he and Ash at any point, so I have to dig a little bit deeper into some of these defenders, etc. Dan Houston is an interesting one this week with rumours that Josh Dacos might be moving into the midfield a little bit more. Maybe that frees up Dan Houston. He's still in my team, so fingers crossed it goes okay. I don't know. We've got some really interesting matchup this week with Freo taking on Geelong. Maybe Luke Jackson goes massive at home out there at Optus Stadium. We've got Gold Coast versus Hawthorn. Will Day coming back into it. The Suns at home above the 27th parallel. We know that they love that. So there's a couple of really interesting games to kick off the week. And then you've got Adelaide, Melbourne, Jordan Dawson basically won that game in the first 15 minutes for the Crom the other day. Very nice there. Collingwood come back from their bye against Port Adelaide. A very interesting game at the G. Power, I don't feel like they're the world's greatest defensive team. And Collingwood, they need all the offensive help they can get. Richmond North is pretty fun, especially when you think about your the way that Xerri's been used. There is talk that Nank will be back for the Tigers this week, which might put a bit of a dampener maybe on Xerri, but still, the way they're using him and like using like the springy young dudes was a Goad and Trembath in the centre bounces, but then Xerri going to like a bunch of the ball ups around the ground. He ends up with a massive score. So, yeah, you wonder about the longevity in this approach for his scoring output for the rest of the season. And, yeah, you think about it and wonder if it's a bit of a thumbs up. And then we finish up with the Saints and the Dogs. So we're sort of sitting there with, like, if you've got Ed Richards or the Bont, Sinclair, Naz, Cal Wilkie, plenty of Saints and Dogs there at the end of the round. So I guess the big things that I'm looking at for my round 15 team are quite simply with 8 remaining trades. The Roberts injury is the absolute, like, just, it sucks for the young fella. He's been awesome all year. Sucks for the Dons fans. Sucks for, like, Supercoach. It just sucks. It sucks. And the thing is, I guess you got to try to figure out, like, the 503K that he's at, how are you going to disperse that, right? I guess that's the big question this week. The other one for me is, like, bringing in Xerri, are we going to do it? How's it all going to work out? So, I guess if you look at the defenders, obviously, right out of the gun, just essentially the highest scoring, replacement ideas that you could have for Archie Roberts down back. Because, I mean, the poor fella, it sucks. He's already been traded out 20,000 times. Jesus. Oof, that is rough as. He would have been in, 83,000 teams at that point too. So, who would you want to bring in, Jim? It's also who you can afford, and if you're like me and you want to bring Xerri this week as well, you got to do finagling. You might have to do a little bit of okay, hold your nose here for this defender. But I think if I had my pick of the bunch at the moment, I mean, obviously, if I could just go up to Johnny Noble, the weapon, I probably would. I'm very annoyed at myself that, 5 weeks ago, I'm like, geez, I wouldn't mind, having a bit of a go on Johnny Noble. And instead, I think that week, I went to Max Holmes that week. So that's not too bad because he's probably going to end up the highest scoring defender. But the highest scorers overall, it's Max Holmes, Jack Sinclair, Archie Roberts at number 3, Nick the Lizard Blakey. Not bad. An average of 101, priced at 509. You got Johnny Noble, the weapon. Average now of 107.3 because he's actually played one less game than Blakey, and away we go. Bailey Dale, kind of one of the forgotten men. He's in 9.6% of teams as well. But my favourite is obviously Lockie Ash. He's in 26.8% of teams at the moment at 524. Rose 15K just this week alone after his big 130. His roll down back is a bit nicer at the moment. Whitfield's a little bit more in the middle. Feels like he's got at least a little bit of clean air. The other two that I'm probably actually going to have to try to get into my team in this sort of trade round, if I can pull it off, Cal Wilkie and Luke Parker. And I do have this hilarious vibe that I think Xerri, Parker, and one of the 99K rookies, I believe I am $100 short of pulling that off. So I do believe that my next one is actually probably going to be Cal Wilkie. Had a bit of a rough one this week. He's had a bit of back half of the season has sort of gotten a bit choppy, but he was so good to start the year. You wonder if he can get that back. Wayne Miller has obviously been very, very good as well. Only in 8.8% of teams as well. Pretty interesting pod there. The Crom are playing very well. He's priced at 519. Parker has got a great run home as well. His role has changed a little bit as well with sort of... He ripped off a 106 2 weeks ago against Freo as they got belted. In the tight win over the Eagles this week, he only made 79. The only time he has turned up since round 8 was that Freo game. So cheap at 460, but you do wonder if, the older player, the slight role change, Colby McKercher going back again, might have stymied his output a little bit. So Archie Roberts, look, I think if I had to rank them 1 through 5, if you don't have Naz, I think he would be probably number 1 after he's 135 this week. If not, if you don't have Max Holmes, same sort of thing, right? Jack Sinclair after a 90, still got an average of 113, obviously very good. But for around that price, the Lockie Ash is probably, that would be my number 1 target. Johnny Noble, if I could afford him as well, he'd be right there. Whitfield is still there. I think he's going to put up at least really solid numbers the rest of the way. He had 99 this week. They do play the Blues at home this week. He's at 520. So the fact that he's actually cheaper than Ash is pretty interesting. He's in 24% of teams as well. Break even this week at 127. So you wonder if you can maybe wait. He's ripped off 79, 90, 99. But that came after, I think, 6 straight tons. So don't get Lockie Whitfield in at your own peril almost at this point. But anyway, Callum Mills is another interesting one, but we're sitting on their bye right now. Bit of a weirdo. And the other one that I did kick the tyres on, because I'm looking at Cal Wilkie, I'm looking at Luke Parker if I bring in Cherry this week as well. Jordan Clark and Freo, right? You've got the sort of, the two dudes, you've got Jordan Clark on Freo, and if you sort of like, I don't know, you look around at how they've been playing, obviously, Jordan Clark, Luke Ryan, two popular names over the years, but Jordan Clark, he has 1 ton in the game since a big 146 in round 6. He's only had a ton once since then. He's at 451. Would you trust the run home? They have Geelong at home, Gold Coast at home, Greater Western Sydney and Canberra, Sydney at home, Port Adelaide in Adelaide, home for Eagles, home for Dogs, Melbourne at the G, home for Adelaide, and Marvel for the Blues. I feel like Jordan Clark could at least still probably be okay, but I feel like Cal Wilkie might have the top end ceiling here that I might end up reaching for. So I think that's where I'm going to go. So let's have a look at the top traded out players for the week. It's Archie Roberts, obviously 25K trades already. That just makes sense. Patrick Rechko, 21,000 trades after not a great one. I think what we talked about him last week, he managed the 44. So still managed to sneak up 7K to 300.4K overall. But he's okay to go now with a fairly big break even at 95. Milan Murdoch, obviously, on his buy, topping out with his price. Sam Cumming as well, more like Sam going. Willem Dersma on his buy. He's gotten to 420, which is pretty cool. Break even is 68 this week, but again, didn't play last week with an injury. So, yeah, a bit of a rough one for Dersma because you kind of want to, think about keeping him, but with a calf, you never want to sort of screw with that. Angus Angry Anderson still there as well. Josh Lindsay, Sardis, Jack Ison, and Lockie McAndrew. Look, if you've held Lockie McAndrew for this week, for this long, I think you've been well rewarded because he's managed to make it all the way up for, 428K? It's a big price rise of 308K from his starting point. So not bad, good size. So of those traded out ones, I think obviously the ones that you want to move on, like the weird part is with Murdoch and Archie Roberts both on buys, you don't have to go out and make sure you trade them. Like even if you've kept Josh Lindsay, but it's more about, all right, what are your priorities this week? You're trying to get a big score. You're trying to keep winning this league. You're trying to PREMO out as quickly and as hardcore as you can. That's the boat I'm in, to the point where maybe who cares about some of these trades. But anyway, the most traded in players. Joel Fitzgerald, the 99K rookie after 1 game. He was awesome this week. You'd love to see him. Jordan Dawson, absolutely crushing it for the Crom. Hugo Hall-Kahan, I already brought him in last week. Very happy with that. He's been very good. Lockie Ash, Kyle Anand, another 99K rookie. Mitch Pods, 99K rookie. Cherry right there at 7. Naz at 8. Cozzy at 9. And Campbell Lake on the bubble. Didn't play last week. So, yeah, let's see. Bit of a rough one there for Campbell Lake. So, I guess, overall, what am I going to do? Well, I just don't want to miss out on any more like 150s from Cherry. He might stink it up the rest of the season, but if he stinks it up and he's in my team, that's it, right? I'm fine. I'm okay with that. At 554, he's got a break even this week. of 141, but he's playing the Tigers, where he has once before scored 187 against those Tigers. Then he takes on Essendon. Not bad. Then he takes on Port Adelaide. So you kind of like, oh, these are really good matchups. Even the Pies, right? Before he gets to round 19 at Marvel against the Demons. Even at Marvel, I'm still kind of like, all right. So Cherry's probably my priority. And then Archie Roberts. You can keep the powder dry, of course, as a sort of hit on. With Archie not playing anyway, I've still got like enough warm bodies on my team this week to field the best 18, but I kind of want to keep pushing for a really, really big score. So I think that's where I'm going to be bringing in Cherry and probably our man Cal Wilkie. So the way that this happens is we've got this rash of 99k rookies. You've got Hugo Hawkahan. He's been fantastic for the Saints. He's already my team. He had 68 a game this week. He's a weapon. And I guess he'd probably be your number one 99K to bring in, a mid defender. Very, very handy. But Joel Fitzgerald's probably the one that I'm going to bring in this week because I already brought in Marcus Herbert as well with one game to go. And he scored a 75 for me, which is very good, but he's on the bye. So Joel Fitzgerald comes in probably for the 73. Already in the bag. He's got a break even now, minus 31. He does have the round 16 bye, but I mean, it's a 99K rookie. He might put up a decent score again. He was an absolute ball magnet on the weekend. So he's just seeming like very decent bench cover. And that's kind of the cool thing about Hugo Hawkahan as well. And Marcus Herbert with the 75 that he had. Anand as well had 66. So these guys seem like half decent bench cover for even down the track when we're out of trade. So don't mind it. Anand as well had the 66. So that's pretty cool. And you got to keep in mind, Jackson Artemis in 2 weeks' time, if he gets named, he might just slot straight into the Archie Roberts role, right? So he could be another good one. But what am I going to do this week? I think the very easy one for me is quite simply to go to use 3 trades. That would take me all the way down to 5 remaining for the rest of the season, but I would be full PREMO. That would be bringing in Cherry, Wilkie, and Joel Fitzgerald in exchange for Archie Roberts, Milan Murdoch, and Will Lewis. So Roberts and Murdoch wouldn't be playing this week anyway. Cherry and Wilkie would go on field. I think Fitzgerald might actually get onto my field as well in place of Campbell Lake. So, yeah, all 3 of those would go onto my actual field this week, which is always a good vibe around your buys. And I guess the question would be then, were I to do this, I do have 1 remaining boost, which is pretty cool. So I could burn another trade if I wanted to actually maybe not have Wilkie, but to go to perhaps Ash. That would be like sacrificing probably like someone like Dirksen, who's at 175k, just to eke out that little bit more cashish to make up the difference between Wilkie and Ash, and then bring in another 99k like Artemis. Jackson Artemis. So that is still sitting there for me, but I think at the moment this is where I'm going to land, right? So I have Wilkie and Cherry. Wilkie, I think, has been very, 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 his floor, he hit it this week basically with his 63, had the 24 back against the Suns. We know he doesn't miss games. And for a minute there, he was like a lock and load. From round 0 onwards, he had 104, 114, 129, 102, 125, 121, 105. Obviously dealing with Naz and a couple of the other Sainters that they've got. But I still think he just had a couple of rough kicks this week and we're just a bit off kilter. So I think I'll go with Cal Wilkie. Will I regret it? I don't know, but at least it'd still leave me with 5 trades rather than 4 with a full PREMO team heading into round 16 and then rolling out there and hoping that 4 is enough for injury coverage, which is never really enough. I'd rather have 5. So fingers crossed. Yeah. So Captain's Corner this week. I don't mind putting the VC straight onto Luke Jackson. Probably into Cherry, right? Because you got Luke Jackson up against the Cats. We know how damaging he is around the ground as well. And I don't mind that at all. If you've got Max Gawn up against Adelaide, that's a pretty interesting one. Maybe. The Bont playing the Saints later on in the week, I don't feel great about that. But Cherry up against Richmond, obviously very, very handy. Cozzy against the Crom. He was very good this week with his 141. Just don't know. Just don't know. Dacos as well. A bit of Nakos up against Port. Possibly. Butters up against Collingwood. Pretty good ones, but I'm probably just going to go with the big men. I'll go Luke Jackson into Tristan Xerri. Yeah, and there we go. So full PREMO. I feel okay about that. I'll go through it all quickly and how I feel about it all. The defenders, Sinclair, Naz, Holmes, Sicily. Dan Houston hoping for a bounce back from here on out. Cal Wilkie, Hugo Hall, Kahan, and Dirksen. In the mids, Butters, Bont, Nakos, Callahan, Caleb, Sarong, Sammy Walsh. Obviously, Neil and Heaney on the bye this week. Joel Fitzgerald is on field. What do you got? Tom Burton, Herbert as well. In the rucks, it's got, that's Grundy and Jackson with Cherry in the flex. And the forwards are Shees, Petrarca, Rankin. Hopefully, he seems like it's all, guns firing for this week. JHF, the Hornet, Cozzy, and Took Miller with Banfield and Lake on the bench. So, full PREMO. Really hoping that Took Miller has a good bounce back this week against the Hawks because that sucks. And I don't want to make any sideways trades, but if I'm left with 5 from here on out, that's hopefully just like a bit of injury cover, maybe like a little bit of desperation pod sideways trades later on, and there we go from there. But that's it. How are we looking? How did you go in round 14? Let us know. That is it from us here on Jim Does Supercoach, though, for this week. So make sure you subscribe to everywhere. Get around us on the socials. Jump on the YouTube. Say g'day. Jump on the comments. All that fun stuff, as well as your podcast apps as well. NBA Australia is still going. Footy Unfiltered with myself and Jez as well. NFL Australia will be back very soon as well. So there you go. That's all the shows. All right. This is a very, very, very big week. Full PREMO. We got there. How are we feeling? Hopefully good. Here's to a massive week of Supercoach. This has been Jim Does Supercoach. Happy Supercoaching.